I don't think that war correspondents are witnesses. We're active participants. 45 foreign journalists were killed in Sarajevo before I got there. Serb snipers would fire on us every day when we left the Holiday Inn. So you are far more than a witness. And there's the adrenaline rush. There's the fact that if you cover war as long as I did for 20 years, you don't function outside of a war setting. And I think a real subtext of my book was not to deify the war correspondent, as much as I respect them and as much as I think it's important, but to examine some of the darker motives that propel that small cobble of war photographers and writers who leap from war to war to war, as I did for 2 decades. Well, as Marshall McLuhan pointed out, you create the medium is determined, or the shape of the medium is determined by the technology that transmits it. Newsprint for a long time had a monopoly connecting sellers with buyers. And the whole creed of objectivity and impartiality and neutrality, which is a fiction, was developed at the end of the 19th century by newspaper owners who realized that if they didn't take the strong stances that traditionally newspapers had taken, they could attract commercial advertising, and quite a bit of it. I mean, newspapers were making profits 23, 25, 26%. And then, so it's less, that was obviously a very clumsy way to get to the truth, which is why the alternative press, magazines like Ramparts or would always be breaking stuff and in essence shaming the traditional press, the commercial press, into doing their job. But what's happened was, now that monopoly is broken and newsprint is no longer the primary medium that connects sellers with buyers, like all dying systems, they don't know how to readjust. They still play by the old rules because that's how they've been formed. And so, in fact, this kind of faux objectivity, which is really a way of placating the power elite. I mean, I worked for the New York Times for 15 years, and the sort of unspoken credo of the New York Times was, do not significantly alienate those on whom we depend for access and money. You can alienate them sometimes, but you better not alienate them all the time. And so you are seeing one major newspaper, the Philadelphia Inquirer, is going through a crisis as we speak, because the people running those papers, it's like Byzantium. They know only how to service the empire. They don't know how to reform. They don't know how to adjust. They're not trained that way. And so I think that that's a huge problem now within the news business, is they can't adjust to a new reality. Well, the problem is that it's very hard to make a living as a reporter on the internet. Very few people are doing it, and those few people who do it are usually like at Politico or funded by nonprofits. I think what's happening is that journalism is being pushed to the fringes of society in the same way that classical theater and all of these disciplines are being pushed to the fringes. Journalism, people who practice journalism, who once were members of the middle class, will no longer be members of the middle class. And we're losing those skills. I mean, we're losing editing skills, we're losing reporting skills. The internet is kind of the opposite of newsprint, in that newsprint, you go out, report a story, you verify it, you're fact-checked, you're edited, whereas you can throw anything out on the internet. It's more emotionally driven. And it's not always rooted in verifiable fact. Whatever the criticisms are of the New York Times, it was rooted in verifiable fact, and we are increasingly in a culture for which verifiable fact is not relevant.